And so today I want to help us to try to get a little bit of understanding of life. So Romans chapter 8, I'll read out of the King James today. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. Doesn't take much to understand that until life starts happening and circumstances start unfolding and dreams start happening differently than you planned or perhaps come to a close. And so it'd be easy for us to read this, and we know that all good, happy, pleasant, wonderful things work together for good to them that love God and to them that are called according to his purpose. And so I want us to pray and ask God to help us to understand how to trust him. Father, I love you, and I ask that you help us today, God. I know that you want to encourage us and to help us to know that you are here. You see our need, you see our struggle, you see our circumstances. And God, you're with us through the whole thing, and it's something for our good, Lord, whether we see it here or in eternity, God. But I pray that you give us comprehension to understand your very nature and your heartbeat. God, help us to be understanding today, and help us to understand your word and to apply it to our lives. Lord, that we will get the understanding in the passage today, Lord, to help us to understand and comprehend your nature. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. So the message today is the struggle is real. Good. Next time you hear somebody say the struggle is real, say real good. Look at your neighbor, let them know you're glad they're here today. You can be seated. My wife didn't know today, as she selected the songs, she usually does those weeks in advance, but she did not know what I was preaching today, and yet every song seems to be appropriate with what I'm going to preach today. My staff didn't know what I was going to preach today, that the struggle is real. Good. Because this passage says all things work together for good. All things, all struggles, all things happen for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. Last week, Audra, our administrator, asked me, it's not uncommon that when we start having a focus on prayer and evangelism that a lot of stuff starts happening. It's not uncommon for it to happen at a top level, and I see it happening among our staff, and so we have to equip and prepare ourselves for adversity. And so we saw this start to unfold, and as I start receiving phone calls from staff and from faculty and from people that are going through things and trips to the hospital and phone calls about family members and all these things started unfolding. So Audra asked me last week, she said, Pastor, do you feel like you're the captain of the struggle bus? I said, no. I'm the admiral of the entire fleet. So today, some faculty members come into my office and present me Tristan saluted me. And they had no idea what I was preaching today. So I guess I'm not your pastor today. I'm the admiral of the struggle bus. And we know that all things work together, all things. It's the all things that are the struggle. Because we associate good with God, bad with the devil. And in its simplest forms, I suppose that's true, but sometimes we have to look into eternity a little ways to feel like things are good. Sometimes I have to look past my present circumstance and what I'm going through right now to really get God's goodness in that moment. Sometimes right now doesn't feel so good. It doesn't seem like things are good, and there's difficult things going on. William Batten says this: when I hear my friends say they hope their children don't have to experience the hardships that they went through, he says, I don't agree with them. Those hardships made us what we are. You can be disadvantaged in many ways, and one way may be not having had to struggle. We go to school to struggle. We go to the gym to struggle. We call it working out, but it's struggle. It's difficult. It's pain. We even say that at the gym, at least from what I recall when I used to go. No pain. We never say that in church. But the principle is still just as real. There's a phrase that says, hard times create strong men. It's a part of a 4-part quote from Michael Hopp's novel, Those Who Remain. It says this, maybe some of you will recognize it, and I hope that especially our men pay attention to this, because I believe men should still be leaders. I think men should still be strong. I think they still should be the protectors. I still think we have our roles. Everybody's equal, but we have different roles. It says this in his book, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. And we see that cycle in our world right now. This quote suggests a cyclical pattern in history where adversity fosters strength. Prosperity leads to complacency, and this ultimately results in weakness and in return to challenging conditions. The source and the origin of this meeting in this book is from this book that was a post-apocalyptic novel entitled Those Who Remain. And in the cyclical view of history, this full quote presents a cyclical view of human society and leadership, proposing that difficult periods forges strong, capable individuals who then usher in eras of prosperity. Maybe we look back, and I've done a number of funerals, and I've said this myself, they don't make them like that anymore. And I'm talking about the individual. I'm talking about a person that they don't make them like they used to. Well, first of all, who's they? And why don't they? Why don't they make them like they used to? They should. But it wasn't that maybe they didn't make them that way, but maybe life, maybe the Depression, the Great Depression, made them that way. I know my grandparents went through it, and I know what it forged in them. I know those traits were forged into my father. I remember opening a garage door by hand. That's my adversity. I remember when we didn't have a microwave in the house. We had to put the ravioli in a pan, Craig, and heat it up over a fire. You know, the hard days. We didn't have central air in our house. I'm telling you about my hard days. We finally got a window air conditioner, and everybody kept their bedroom doors open, so maybe we could all get a little bit from that one air conditioner that we had in somebody's window. Ask my dad. We had a neighbor that had their fireplace there in the city of Columbus that used to be all gas fireplaces, but you know they all did away with those, and everybody got furnaces. But they had a company come in and build brick and redo the fireplace and redo the flue, and they had an actual wood fireplace in their house. And so, man, we'd go there. We would just watch the fire burn for hours. Wow, a fire in your house. So I begged my dad, Dad, can we do that? He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, son, I used to see the snow come through the boards in our house. We had wooden floors in our house growing up. The house is still standing. The house my dad's talking about is still standing in southeast Alabama. It's one of the oldest houses in all of Barber County. Still standing. Still has the old beds in there that the mattresses were corn shocks. Still in the house. He said, son, do you know how much firewood I've hauled? He said, it'll heat you 3 times. Cutting it, stacking it, and burning it. He said, you know how many times I burned my hind end trying to put clothes on next to that old potbelly stove in that old house? He said, son, let me tell you something. He said, all I want to do when I want heat is to go over to that wall and just slide that little button over a little bit. I hear stories of some of these old timers that mom would make a potato and make a baked potato in an old wood-burning stove, and that boy, that little girl would put that potato in their pocket, and it'd keep their hands warm on the way to school. And in that old cold schoolhouse, they'd keep their hand on that potato. And then by about lunchtime, it was about ready to eat. It would cool down enough to be able to, and then they would eat that potato. I thought we were struggling because we didn't have a microwave. I was excited when we got a garage door that my dad didn't have a garage. They didn't have a car for years. Hard times forged some things in those people. And we say, why don't they make them like that anymore? Because we're soft, that's why. And times have made us soft. I've never had one person, I'll say yet, I hope it doesn't happen, I've not had one person ever throw a tomato at me while I was preaching. Don't get any ideas. I've learned to watch what I say. I've got an admiral hat here now, so I've learned to be careful what I say. But some of those old preachers in brush arbors, I never knew what a brush arbor was. I guess it's a tent meeting. I guess it's a place where they would just make a little place out in the field somewhere and preach under that. Brush arbors. We talk about brush arbors, and most of us don't even know what it was. But people would scratch their cars. They would throw rocks into the side windows of the building while they were trying to preach and just have church. That made people believe, I either believe this or I don't, because I have to fight for it. If I'm going to believe it, I have to fight for it. And we walk into air-conditioned buildings and padded seats. And we sometimes wrestle with the things of God. In this passage here, we see that this view here, this quote represents a cyclical view of human society and leadership, proposing that difficult periods forge us strong, capable individuals who then usher in the area of prosperity. But then there's the complacency and the decline, and then the good times can lead to weakness and apathy because people no longer need to struggle or to be resilient. Jake is a guy that I went to church with in Columbus for years, Jake and Irma. They ended up moving down to Alabama because they liked the weather down there. And they would visit my parents when my parents were there just to just be there during a few weeks out of the year. So they ended up living down there. I found out later that Jake had served in 3 of the 4 branches of the military. And the reason why he was out of the one branch so soon, I believe, is the Army, is because they found out that he was only 16. He lied about his age to join the service because he wanted to serve his country. It was right at the tail end of World War I and before Vietnam and all that, and before Korea. It was right during that time frame. And so Jake decided to lie about his age to go fight for what he felt was good and right. Well, they found out his age and they kicked him out. So he went to Fort Hays up here in Columbus, which turned into a career center by the time I was in school. But it was a place, it was a post, and so Fort Hays was up there. And then he hung out there for a while and served there for a while until he got old enough to join again. And as soon as he had his 18th birthday, he joined the military again. And then after serving his time there, he thought he'd try another branch. And these are guys that were a different breed. These are guys that lied about their age to go fight. By the time I came on the scene, people were lying about their age to keep from fighting. In fact, recently I heard a survey that's, and you could make an argument, well, I don't want to go on foreign soil and fight for other people's problems. You could make that argument. But I will say this, that they just did a survey recently and asked the question among those that were like 26 years old to like 18. They asked young men this question: if your country, if the USA was invaded, would you fight for your freedom? Would you fight for your country? 80% said no. An invasion, fighting for your own freedom and the freedom of your country. 80% of 26 to 18-year-olds said, no, I wouldn't fight. As long as I got my cell phone, as long as I have my cappuccino and my Starbucks gift card, as long as I've got that, everything's fine. As long as I got my laptop, and just don't bother me. I don't care if we're communists. I don't care if we lose our freedoms, but everything's good. I'm not fighting for anything. They asked the same question to those that were about 50 to 80 years old, and 80% of them said absolutely. Why? Because good times create soft men. And as a result, it returns back to adversity, and this weakness in turn creates this apathetic mindset, and this creates new hard times for the next generation, completing the cycle. The idea that facing and overcoming challenges is essential for personal and societal, and I will say even spiritual growth. Everyone say spiritual growth. And so here's the question that all of us have in our minds as we sit here in church today. Can I trust God when life doesn't make sense? Everybody say why. Did a whole series on why here a while back. I'd always heard if you do the right things that what you put into the soup is what you get out of the soup. So you say, stay faithful to the Lord and follow His word and you will be blessed. I falsely assumed that blessed meant that I would not face any obstacles or any struggles or any misunderstanding or any betrayal or anything like that. That I wouldn't encounter that kind of thing. I falsely assumed that was the case. But we see in this passage that all things work together. Everybody say all. So all things, good things and bad things. Things that we feel that are beneficial and even those things that aren't so great, that these things all work together. So in Rick Warren's book a number of years ago about, he sold millions of copies about the purpose-driven life. He said this, that there's, on railroad tracks, there's two tracks. There's a left one and a right one. And there's good things and bad things that are happening generally simultaneously that keep him balanced. He said that simultaneously, while he was selling millions of books, they were at Walmart, they were in Bible bookstores, they were everywhere, and everybody knew about the purpose-driven church. That simultaneously, after this book hit the shelf, that his wife was diagnosed with cancer. Good things, bad things, simultaneously. Douglas Mallory wrote a poem entitled Good Timber, and he states, the tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and night and light, that stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain, never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. the man who never had to toil to heaven from the common soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow in ease. The stronger the wind, the tougher trees. The farther sky, the greater length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snows, in tree or man, good timber grows. Where thickest stands of forest growth, we find the patriarchs of them both. And they hold converse in the stars, whose broken branches show the scars of many winds and of much strife. This is common law of life. A few years ago, a friend of mine was preaching in Dayton, Ohio. And Brother Dillingham was talking about this biosphere. And he said this university did a study, and they made this indoor arena, this indoor place where they were trying to figure out if they could grow things just as well inside as nature could outside. They controlled the humidity, they controlled the moisture, they controlled the temperature, they had the sunlight, and they were controlling everything that they could, but they found out that they were not producing, the trees were not producing like trees outside. They tried everything. They examined everything to figure out how is it that we can't get these trees to produce like they can outside. And they went through their checklist, and they had imitated everything that the outside had to offer, except one thing: storms. And they realized that the storms that would come would blow those trees. And when those trees would blow, it would start to loosen up that root system. Well, then when the storm would stop, it made it easier for those roots to grow. And it caused them to fill those voids that were weakened by the storm. It caused those roots to go deeper, and the next winds and the next storm and the next the thing that would happen would cause that to grow again. And so what they could not reproduce was the storms. And they realized it was the wind and the storms that actually caused them to fruit better. I also think that we have to understand that in our own life, in our own selves, that we have to understand that these same things cause us to have a better root system. It causes us to depend on God more. It causes us to depend on our family and our close friends more. It causes us to really seek and decide whether we really believe what we say we believe. Now, these things that come to us, these things, everybody say things. Where do they come from? What is this? Does God send all this stuff to happen to us? No, it's not all God. Some of it's God, not all of it's God. Some of it's the devil. Some of it's him. How do we know this? Well, just biblically, we can look at the story of Job and see where the devil was looking for somebody to try to destroy. And so he goes to God and says, hey, I need somebody I can tempt, I can try. And so he's looking for someone to test. And so in this passage, we see where it's the devil that brought all this stuff. Now, here's what we also see, consequently, is that the Lord allowed it. Because he says, now everybody wants to be this guy, right? Everybody wants to have so much confidence of God that God would say, have you considered my servant Bill? I mean, everybody wants that, right? Everybody here would want the Lord to say, hey, I got a guy you can try to destroy. Anybody ever pray that prayer? God, let me be the trophy. Send me in, coach. Nobody? Yeah, me either. Because there's enough of it that comes anyway. Job didn't ask for it either. In fact, at the end of the story, we don't see that Job ever got the memo of why this happened. We know he got blessed. We know that he got twice as much in some cases more than that. But we never saw where Job ever understood on his dying days, in his deathbed, where the Lord showed up and said, hey, Job, by the way, you didn't do anything wrong. Hey, Job, by the way, I needed somebody to believe in. You believed in me. I needed somebody to believe in. I sent the enemy to do this to you because I believed in you. Could you imagine if God would show up and tell you that? We don't have any record where God ever told Job. But you see, God said, have you considered my servant Job? You see, the devil was looking for somebody to test, and God was looking for somebody to be a trophy. And so God allowed it to take place. Go ahead. Give it your best shot. You can't kill him, but give it your best shot is basically how the story goes. So it could be the devil. It could be God allows it. It could be that we create our own problems. Anybody here ever create any drama, your own drama in your life? Anybody? Make some bad choices, some bad decisions. You brought it on yourself. And then you want to blame the devil, but it's probably my own stupid self. Probably my own financial decisions or lack of discipline, or my own choosing of relationships and things that caused my own drama that I knew better, but my heart was so fixed that I just felt like God would turn them around or turn me around, or God will help. And while we're making bad decisions, we keep asking God to help. Anybody but me ever been there? And so it could be that. It could be the devil, could be God, could be ourselves, it could be man. Joseph, and the story of Joseph, that his brothers and Potiphar's wife and all these people, that Joseph was always doing the right thing. I don't ever see where Joseph made a mistake. One of the best examples of a God-fearing man in Scripture, and yet just situation after situation, his family betrayal. He goes to work in the palace, and the Potiphar's wife wants to be with him, and she lies about him, so he ends up in prison again, and he helps people in the prison, the butler and the baker, and they don't really tell what he did for them. And so there's so many times where he keeps being done wrong. Man, people, humans can do you wrong. So it could be that. And it could be life. Ecclesiastes 9:11 at the end of it says, but time and chance happeneth to them all. You might have got a flat tire because you ran over a nail. May not be a devil. Maybe your enemy at work didn't put it there. Maybe you just ran over a nail. Maybe the wind just blew shingles off your house. Maybe there wasn't some kind of wind devil that climbed up on your roof and tore some shingles off. Maybe it was just time and chance. Maybe just bad wind and old shingles. It could have been. But what we have to understand is no matter what the cause, it all works for the good. Everybody say for the good. To them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. So in this we see that all things, everybody say all things. Everybody say works together. It's like pieces of a puzzle. These things that happen in our life, that there are many circumstances that are interdependent on each other. And sometimes we see later on in life, we see puzzles. We see that, okay, now I see how I got here. Now I see what God was doing. Sometimes I'll never know. Sometimes we'll never see those things. But all things work together. And so sometimes it's a job that you didn't like, but it led to something else. It led to some other opportunity because you met somebody on that job. It led to something else better, or a neighborhood or a house. So there's certain things that you'll see sometimes through life that as long as you're faithful to him, you'll see pieces of puzzles come together. The people that you meet, the things that you learn, the things that you do. I look back in my life and see how I was in sales and I was in construction and I was in different areas of my work experience. And I see how many of those things have been beneficial when I got into the ministry. I didn't know I would need to know construction or plumbing when I became a pastor. But I found out that they probably should have a construction class in every Bible college on the planet Because if you're going to pastor, you better know a little bit about some of these things. Everybody say work together. Everybody say for good. We want the best for our children. Any parent that's in the house today, we want the best for our children. We want the best for people that we love. So if you don't have any children, you have parents, you have friends, you have loved ones, you have people that you care about. We want the best for them. But the best for them doesn't mean that it's our goal to make them feel good all the time. It goes back to soft times. We want those people that we love to be healthy. So in being healthy, it may not be giving them cake. It may not be giving them cake all the time. Sometimes I accuse the church here of trying to kill me. Because there's like pastor's appreciation, and they give me cakes and pies and all these things that you know that I love. And I'm like, you're trying to kill me. You're trying to kill me. You're trying to take me out. I know you're trying to be nice. But if I ate that all the time, I'm not telling you not to do those things. Don't want you to misunderstand me. Maybe dial it back a little bit. But could you imagine if I only ate what I liked? Could you imagine if I only did what I want to do and not what I should do and not what I needed to do? I mean, when I go to bed, when I wake up, the things I do throughout the course of my day, could you imagine how lazy we would all be? How unhealthy we would be, how unproductive we would all be if we just simply responded to what I want and what I think is good instead of what is best being good. And so for our children, we have them study. That's good, because you're helping them to grow. But does it feel good when you say, go do your homework? No. We tell them when to get up and when to go to bed and clean their room and cut the grass and help with whatever chores. Why? Because we're wanting to build something in them. If we wanted them just to feel good, we would just serve them. Please don't just serve your children. Serve them if they're babies. Serve them if they're infants. As they get into toddlers, start giving them little areas of responsibility. Grow them into productive people. If you let them be absolutely spoiled, they will be horrible humans. And so there's correction, there's discipline, there's structure, there's things that at that moment doesn't feel good. I never felt good when I was grounded, ever. And I got it a lot. A lot. But my parents were trying to break something in me that they knew if they didn't get it taken care of with a little bit of pain now, that I would have to learn that in an adult world, that the pain is much more severe when you learn it, when you lose your job or when you get your house repoed or when all these other things happen, that if I didn't get discipline settled now. And so they were doing it for my good. And so we bless our kids and we want them to succeed. We also want them to grow and mature, and many times that comes through stress or pressure or discomfort or even pain. And so this happens in the spirit world as well. This is not a family seminar today. This is talking about spirit world. And so we have to understand these same principles that we understand in our flesh, that we understand in our finances, that we understand with our children or in our families. These same principles God does with us, but that's really hard because I want him to just love me all the time, and I want to feel loved all the time. And so to me, that equates to him blessing me all the time instead of building me and then molding me and shaping me. Everybody say who? Who is this for? Who's this passage for? To them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. And so we have to fulfill our destiny regardless of the obstacles and trials. To fulfill a purpose, his purpose, your God-called purpose. The only way to make sense of this passage when your world seems to be caving in is to have a spiritual and an eternal view. I would imagine Job thought that God, I don't understand how I could be this righteous man and do what I'm supposed to do and my whole world is caving in. But he says this, however, though you slay me, yet will I trust you. I can trust your sovereignty. I don't trust the circumstances. I don't understand any of this. Is there anybody but me that has ever been in a circumstance that you said, God, I don't get any of this? Was it me? Is it something I did wrong? Is this punishment? Is this something I could have prevented? Is this the devil? I don't know what this is. Is there ever anybody but me that's ever been in that position? And in that position, at some point, we just have to say, and I may never understand any of it or get any of it. However, I will trust you. I will trust your heart. I will trust your sovereignty. I will trust this process no matter what comes out of it. God, I can trust you. And I will not trust you just based on my circumstances. But Pastor, what if I cause my own problem? What good comes from that? Well, you can learn from it and not do it again. You can grow and become a better person from the experience. You can have a testimony and help someone else from making the same mistake or help them recover from it. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6 says this, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, follow him, and he will direct your paths. There's a few big situations in my life I've just surrendered that I'll never understand why God allowed that to happen. I'll never, ever, ever. For the good, how is this ever going to be good? That's where I have to shift gears a little bit. Sometimes we can think, yeah, that's a good message, Pastor, and that's good if your car's in the shop and it got banged up a little bit. But what about major loss? What about major betrayal? What about losing someone? What about these big things? The principle's still there. We just have to reach a little farther to see it. All things work together for the good. I'm driving to the office here the other day and look at my rearview mirror, and the way the glare was on the windshield of the person behind me, it was somebody that we've lost here in the last, I will say, within the last 5 years. And I saw their face in the windshield. I know it wasn't them. But if I didn't know that they were gone, I would have been convinced that was them. Why? Just brings that back. All things work together for the good to them that love God and for them that are called according to his purpose. And then I realized that there's sometimes painful things for me that was still good for them. One of the books we read here a while back, Imagine Heaven, that is 1,000 stories, not every 1,000 story, but this guy cataloged 1,000 stories of people that had these near-death experiences. They died temporarily and then came back to life, and what they saw, what they experienced. All things work together for the good. It's better for your dad right now. I guarantee you that. Not so much for us. I miss him. I need him. I've had 2 dreams recently about my dad. He's out. I had one just the other night. Nothing groundbreaking, but I'm in the house and hear a commotion outside, and I look, and And Dad's got piles of brush from trimming trees and broken limbs, and he's got things in the back there in Alabama, and he's got brush piles everywhere, getting ready to take out to the burn pile. That may not mean much to you. It means the world to me. We have to look sometimes beyond our circumstance to make sense out of this scripture. Went to my buddy Lou's funeral for his loved one. All things work together for the good. I've gone to a lot of funerals. I've preached more funerals than most people have attended in their life. But when you're standing there looking over an 8-year-old boy and watching parents say goodbye to him, how do you make sense out of that? You can't unless you can get a glimpse of eternity and realize that none of us make it out of here alive. And that's what we're all working towards. And so in that case, we still struggle. But God has them in his care. We struggle with things in life. That's a pretty extreme view, but I felt like I need to help somebody to understand that this scripture is no less real. It's not just for small things, all things, all things, all things. As bad as it can get or as minor as it can be, all things work together for the good. And sometimes we have to get a bigger picture, a bigger understanding of what that means, not just I feel good in the moment. It is a bigger picture. On December 29th, as the musicians come, December 29th, 1987, a Soviet cosmonaut returned to Earth after 326 days in orbit. He was in good health, which wasn't always the case in those record-breaking voyages. 5 years earlier, touching down after 211 days in space, 2 cosmonauts suffered from dizziness, high pulse rates, and heart palpitations. They couldn't walk for a week. After 30 days, they were still undergoing therapy for atrophied muscles and weakened hearts. You see, at zero gravity, the muscles of the body began to waste away because there's no resistance. To counteract this, the Soviets prescribed a vigorous exercise program for the cosmonauts. They invented the penguin suit, a running suit laced with elastic bands. It resists every move the cosmonauts make, forcing them to exert their strength. Apparently, the regimen is working because they're still using those things today. You see, they were so weak and unhealthy because they had it so easy with zero gravity. No stress on their body, no resistance, no struggle. You see, we fully understand the value of exercise, a gym membership or membership to the Y. We go and we put our body under strain and pressure. We struggle to be fit and healthy. We understand the value of it. But the same principle applies to our spiritual body. God allows us to go through strain and struggle and resistance to build us up spiritually. We often long dreamingly for days without difficulty, according to Craig Larson. We dreaming of the days without difficulty, but God knows better. The easier our life, the weaker our spiritual fiber. For strength or any kind grows only by exertion. So what is the stuff that builds us? It's challenges, it's pressures, it's stress, it's struggle. The things that do not build us are ease and comfort and pleasure and peace. And these are the things that we crave, and these are the things that we're trying to achieve. But these are simply pleasures and privileges that we enjoy from God from time to time. They are not things that build us. We can stand. I'm going to make an altar call here in just a moment, and here's what I would like you to consider when you come to this altar. I would like for you to ask God to help you to see Him in your struggle. Doesn't matter what the struggle, doesn't matter if you create it yourself. God, help me to see you in my struggle. Help me to learn the lesson that I'm supposed to learn. God, help me to grow. Help me to spiritually grow through this. Do you know how many people, when they go through struggle, they walk away from God? When what they were praying for is, God, build me and mold me and shape me. And so He allows life, and He allows pressure, and He allows circumstances to happen. Okay, you want to be built? You want to be molded and shaped in my image? Then you have to go through some of the things that I went through. If you want to be like me, you have to go through some of the things that I went through. The Bible says He was tempted in all ways, like we are. Somehow we want this dose of God that will help us to be better people, but the process is what He's going to bring us. How do you handle it? How do you work through it? What do you do about it? How do you respond to it? So Lord, help me to grow and help me to spiritually grow through this circumstance. And Lord, as I'm going through it and as I go through it successfully, help me to be encouragement and inspiration for someone else. Has anybody ever been ministered to because you are going through something and you found out that somebody that you admired or somebody that you saw as spiritually strong begins to tell you that they went through it, that they were betrayed, they were abused, they were hurt, they went through some things? They made some poor decisions. They went through a foreclosure. They went through this. They got their car repoed. And now look at them now and they made it through it. Has anybody but me ever been encouraged by somebody that went through something similar that you were going through and realized, oh my goodness, they went through it too. It's not just me. Anybody? I'm opening up this altar right now for us to come and ask God to help us to understand that all things work together. God, I'm willing, Lord, to allow you to reveal yourself. Help me to handle it. Help me to know. Help me to go through this well, Lord.